Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a piece of Tamil literature, an English translation of a poem called Hymn 21. We're going to break it down, see what it's all about, what we can learn from it.
It's amazing how these ancient texts, even in translation, they still speak to us across time and cultures. The depth and beauty of this poem, it really shines through.
Absolutely. So, Hymn 21 starts off by talking about the path of reconciliation and the righteous way. And it highlights this as like the key to achieving spiritual union. What stands out to you about this? Like, how does this connect to the bigger picture of Tamil spiritual tradition?
What's really interesting here is the concept of tharunari, the righteous path. And it's not just about like following rules, it's more about aligning like your whole self, your thoughts, your actions, your intentions with a higher purpose.
So it's more about an inner transformation than just outward rituals.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about creating harmony.
Yeah.
Within yourself and with the world around you. And this harmony, this tharunari, it leads to a deep sense of fulfillment, even in the simplest things.
That's interesting. And the poem goes on to say that even eating and sleeping, like really basic things, become more fulfilling when they're aligned with this path. I mean, that's powerful. Makes me think about mindfulness, the modern idea.
It's a fascinating connection, right? It suggests that spiritual awareness can really elevate every experience. You're present in each moment, not just going through the motions, like mindfulness practices.
Hymn 21 was ahead of its time, but it doesn't just talk about inner peace and mindful eating. It also, it challenges us to look beyond the surface of things, the material world.
Absolutely. It calls us to see beyond those illusions that can cloud our perception and to really understand, like, the true essence of reality.
What kind of illusions do you think it's talking about? This feels relevant to everyone, even today.
That's a great question. Yeah, the poem doesn't really specify, which I think allows us to interpret it through our own experiences. Maybe it's the illusion of permanence, like thinking things stay the same when we know everything changes, or the illusion of separateness, that we're like fundamentally isolated when in reality we're all connected.
I'm starting to see this poem as like a guide to living with more awareness, more purpose.
That's a great way to put it. And this deeper understanding, this ability to see through illusions, it leads to greater spiritual insight and ultimately a sense of liberation.
Okay, so we have this path of righteousness, this call to see through illusions, and then the poem hits us with this powerful reality, death.
Yeah, and it uses such vivid imagery. It compares death to the vast ocean, unstoppable.
Whoa, that's a powerful image. So how's the poem framing death? Is it something to be feared?
Interestingly, it doesn't present death as something to be afraid of. Instead, it acknowledges death as this natural and inevitable part of existence.
So not fighting against the tide, but like accepting its rhythm.
Exactly. And this ties back to seeing beyond illusions. The idea that we can somehow cheat death. That's probably one of the biggest illusions we hold on to. The poem suggests that by accepting death's inevitability, we can actually gain a deeper appreciation for the preciousness of life.
That leads us to one of the most powerful lines in the poem. If death is inevitable, then what remains is the imperishable spirit beyond the body and mind. Wow.
It's a profound statement, right? This is where we get into the heart of Tamil spiritual philosophy. It distinguishes between the physical body, subject to decay and death, and the eternal spirit which transcends the physical realm.
So even though our bodies will eventually die, the poem suggests that there's a part of us, the spirit, that lives on.
That's the essence of it. This concept of the soul or the spirit, it's really important in Tamil spiritual tradition. It's the true self, the unchanging essence that exists even after the body is gone.
It really makes you wonder, what happens to our consciousness after death? Hymn 21 doesn't give any definitive answers, but it encourages us to think about these mysteries.
Exactly. It encourages us to, go deeper into our understanding of life, death, and the nature of the soul. It's a journey we all have to take for ourselves.
Speaking of journeys, Hymn 21 also touches on the importance of community in our spiritual exploration. It urges us to engage in the conduct of a pure gathering as a means of attaining divine vision.
Right. This highlights the social aspect of spiritual growth, this pure gathering. It could refer to like-minded individuals coming together to share insights, practices, and experiences.
So it's about surrounding yourself with people who are on a similar path, seeking spiritual growth together. But wouldn't solitary contemplation also be valuable? How do we balance those two, the community and the individual reflection?
That's a great question. I think both play vital roles. Solitary reflection allows for introspection, deep inner work, while the community offers support, shared wisdom, a sense of belonging. The key is finding a balance.
That makes sense. It speaks to the idea that there's no single right way to approach spiritual growth. It's about finding what resonates with you, what helps you connect to something greater than yourself.
Absolutely. And Hymn 21 gives us so many ideas, practices to draw from on this journey of self-discovery. So welcome back to our deep dive into Hymn 21. You know, as we keep exploring this poem, it's striking how much wisdom is packed in these verses. It really makes you think about life and death and the human experience in these deep ways.
You know, one thing I keep coming back to is how the poem emphasizes understanding as like a key to transcending death. It doesn't just say, okay, death is a fact of life.
Yeah.
It suggests that we can actually move beyond those limitations.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hymn 21 connects transcendence not to like escaping or something, but to a deep understanding of both life and death. Through this understanding, it suggests we can rise above the fear of death, the finality of it.
So it's not about pretending death doesn't exist or running from it, but facing it, really seeing it, being aware of it. And through that understanding, we find a way to, like, transcend it.
That's an interesting take on it. Hymn 21 seems to be pointing to death, not as the end of everything, but as a transition into a different state of being. Which kind of goes back to the idea of the imperishable spirit, right? The part of us that continues.
Almost like Hymn 21 gives us this roadmap, not just for a good life, but for facing death with, courage, maybe even hope.
And that roadmap, it doesn't just focus on individual thinking, right? It highlights how crucial community is in this journey of understanding and transcendence.
Right. The poem mentions the conduct of a pure gathering, which sounds kind of mysterious. What does that mean to you?
Well, it really emphasizes the importance of spiritual community. This pure gathering, it could be like a group of people who come together to explore these big questions, share that purpose, supporting each other, sharing insights, and doing practices that, help their spiritual growth.
So it's about being around others who are also on that path, seeking spiritual growth, a community that can be there for you. But does it have to be a formal group? Couldn't it also be those close connections we have? Friends, family, mentors who help us on our spiritual journey?
That's a really interesting idea. The poem doesn't say exactly what form this gathering should take. Maybe it's more about building relationships where you feel a sense of belonging, shared purpose, and a real commitment to finding truth together.
I like that. It means we can find and even create these pure gatherings in all kinds of ways. Spiritual groups, close friends, even online communities with people who get it.
Exactly. And think about how powerful shared experience is. When you're surrounded by people who are asking the same questions, exploring the same things, it deepens your understanding. It can really help you grow.
Like having a sounding board for spiritual stuff, people to bounce ideas off of, talk about doubts, and celebrate those breakthroughs you have.
Exactly. And this idea of community is deeply rooted in so many spiritual traditions around the world. A Sangha in Buddhism, a church congregation, a Sufi gathering. It's all about that. We're not meant to walk this path alone.
It makes sense, especially with these big existential questions, like, having a team of explorers going through uncharted territory together, and everyone brings their own perspective and experiences, making the journey richer for everyone.
And that team spirit, that shared goal, it can make it less scary. It's about supporting each other, learning from each other's insights, and helping each other stay on the path of righteousness.
So far, Hymn 21 tells us to live mindfully, seek truth, embrace the idea of an eternal spirit, and find strength in community. It's like a blueprint for a life with meaning.
And what's amazing is that this blueprint, written so long ago, still makes sense to us today. It shows how powerful these timeless spiritual truths are, giving us guidance and wisdom that goes beyond culture and time.
Totally. As we go deeper, something that's been on my mind is that the poem mentions achieving divine vision through this pure gathering. What do you think that is? Is it like a sudden insight, a mystical experience, or maybe a slow unfolding of understanding?
That's a big question, and people have interpreted it in so many ways. Some might see it as a literal vision, seeing the divine. Others might see it as a feeling of interconnectedness, understanding that everything is connected.
Right, it could be a very personal experience.
Exactly. Hymn 21 doesn't define it for us. It's up to us to figure out what it means within our own spiritual understanding. It invites us to go on a personal quest.
So it's not about getting to a specific destination, but about the journey itself, the process of seeking and growing.
Precisely. And that journey, that quest for divine vision, can happen throughout our lives. It's an ongoing process shaped by what we go through, what we think about, and our connections with others.
Hymn 21 is a short poem, but there's so much in it. We could spend years trying to understand and apply it to our lives.
That's what makes a text truly timeless, right? It speaks to us across time, cultures, and personal experiences, offering guidance and a path to deeper meaning.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot in this dive into Hymn 21. We've explored the righteous path, the illusions we need to see through, the idea of the imperishable spirit, and the power of community. But there's one more thread to follow, the poem's message of hope and transcendence.
Right, and that's beautifully expressed in the last lines where it talks about achieving divine vision through the pure gathering. Even facing death, there's a possibility of transcendence, a way to connect to something eternal and find peace.
It reminds us that even though life is short and we're all going to die, there's something deeper that connects us all, a timeless essence. It's a comforting thought. But the question is, how do we actually use these ideas in our lives? How do we make these ancient teachings work for us in the 21st century?
That's the question we're going to explore in the last part of our deep dive. We'll look at practical ways to weave these timeless truths into our everyday lives and see the transformative power of this wisdom firsthand.
Can't wait to keep exploring this with you. See you soon for the last chapter of our Hymn 21 adventure. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Hymn 21. We've uncovered so much already, from the righteous path to the eternal spirit and the importance of community. Now, the big question is, how do we actually live this out? It's one thing to admire the poem, but how do we embody its wisdom?
Yeah, that's where things get real, right? When we go beyond just understanding and start actually living it. It's about making those ancient teachings real, putting them into action.
I hear you. Hymn 21 talks about seeking divine vision, rising above death, embracing that imperishable spirit. Those are big ideas. Where do we even start?
Well, the poem gives us some clues. Remember how it emphasizes the path of reconciliation and the righteous way? That's our foundation. It's about making choices every day that line up with our values and something bigger than ourselves.
So living with purpose, being aware of our thoughts and actions and how they impact us and the world around us.
Exactly. And that awareness, it can be in everything, how we treat people, how we take care of our bodies, even our relationship with the planet.
It's like that idea of mindful eating we talked about before, but bigger. Like mindful living, right?
Exactly. And as we become more aware, more committed to living by our values, those illusions Hymn 21 talks about, they start to fade away. We see through the idea that we're separate, that things are permanent. We connect with a deeper truth.
And is that connection, that feeling of being part of something bigger, is that what leads to the divine vision the poem describes?
It could be a path, yeah. The experience of divine vision, it'll probably be different for everyone, but often it involves this deep sense of peace, interconnectedness, and really understanding the nature of reality.
So maybe it's not about some huge mystical experience, but more about cultivating this awareness inside and recognizing that connection to something divine within us and all around us.
You said that perfectly. And that's what makes Hymn 21 so powerful, so relevant to everyone. It doesn't tell us what to believe. It gives us a framework, some principles we can use on our own spiritual journeys.
And those journeys, as we've talked about, are richer and more meaningful when we have community. A pure gathering of people who get it. Having people to walk alongside you, share the ups and downs, that can make all the difference.
It's true. Community brings belonging, encouragement, accountability. As we go through these big questions and challenges, it gives us strength and inspiration. Whether it's a spiritual group, close friends, or online communities, that support and shared wisdom is so valuable.
Like a safety net. A group of people who get what you're going through, who can be there for you when you fall and celebrate with you when you reach new heights.
Exactly. And as we explore, as we seek truth and live by our values, we start to really embrace that idea of the imperishable spirit Hymn 21 talks about.
That part of us that goes beyond the physical, that lives on after death.
Right. And whether you take that literally or metaphorically, it can bring comfort and hope, especially when we think about our own mortality.
Because if we truly believe in that eternal part of ourselves, death becomes less of an ending and more of a change.
Like a doorway to something new, a continuation of our journey, just in a different form. That can be so freeing.
It can take away the fear, encourage us to live fully right now, and inspire us to make choices that match our deepest desires. If we embrace that idea of an eternal spirit, every moment becomes precious, a chance to grow, connect, and express that divine spark inside us.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and I think he captures that message of hope and transcendence that's at the heart of Hymn 21.
It's a reminder that even though life is short and we all face death, there's this deeper truth that links us all, a timeless essence that offers lasting peace and fulfillment. What a beautiful, comforting thought.
It is. And we've seen in this deep dive that this truth is within everyone's reach, not through big displays or mystical events, but through the simple act of living with intention, seeking understanding, and nurturing that connection to the divine, both inside us and all around us.
As we wrap up our exploration of Hymn 21, I feel a real sense of awe for the wisdom it holds. It leaves me inspired to follow that path of righteousness, to look for truth beyond illusions, and to live each day with gratitude and purpose.
Beautifully said. Let this deep dive be a reminder that the journey to divine vision, a life of meaning, it all starts with a single step. It starts with choosing to align our thoughts, actions, and intentions with those timeless truths that are within each of us.
And on that note, we leave you with a final thought from Hymn 21. If we truly believe in an eternal spirit, a part of us that goes beyond time and space, how would that change how we live today? What choices would we make? What relationships would we cherish? What kind of legacy would we want to leave?
Think about those questions. May your journey be filled with wonder, purpose, and that light of divine vision.